Hey, this is House Education on April 2nd, 2026. The committee is going to walk through the language as we have it. There may be an outstanding decision or two to make. Not much. Then we will break for a little bit to make any changes that need to be made. And then, so the goal here is that we will be wrapped up with this morning. Period.
We'll vote on it before or after lunch.
Before, yeah. And then after lunch, if we're all wrapped up, there's a bigger room that we haven't been to in a while. We'll spend some time up there. All right. Okay. Beth, thank you very much for your work tonight and this morning, getting this to us in a timely fashion, and really appreciate that and look forward to your walkthrough.
Thank you, Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel. There's a lot of highlighting in here. Most of that was to alert editing as to what needed to be edited. And I did not take the time between getting it back and sending it to Matt for posting to go back in and make it more tailored to what we have discussed and not discussed. So if you have questions about the highlighted language, if I skip over anything, please don't hesitate to ask. But if I do skip over highlighted language, because we have already looked at it, it just hadn't been edited. Would you like me to share my screen?
Yes, please.
That's 8 point.
We're looking at draft 9.1.
I need to refresh.
Yeah.
So the first thing you'll notice is that the statement of purpose has been filled out, and this is just basically a list of everything that's in the bill. We're going to skip over it since you don't have any say in what goes in there. This is my one area where I can exert any control. So the first thing you'll see is we've added some legislative intent language. I will say there is another section with legislative intent language on pre-K. Personally, I think putting the pre-K legislative intent right up front is confusing because it takes forever to get to the pre-K language. I think it works fine nestling it further down. If you feel differently, I'm happy to make that change.
So the legislative intent language is new. Felt that we needed to reiterate one, sort of some of the goals of Act 73, and then two, sort of reflecting the conversations, discussions, and ultimately where we landed in this version of the bill.
So to ensure each student is provided substantially equal educational opportunities that will prepare the student to thrive in a 21st century world, is the intent of the General Assembly to work strategically, intentionally, and thoughtfully to ensure that each incremental change in the Vermont public education system provides strength and support to its only constitutionally required governmental service. Where have you seen this language before? Someone who didn't give me this language. Yes, Act 73. Section B, the General Assembly recognizes that Vermont's schools anchor local economies and community identity, connecting young people to their homes while supporting workforce development and long-term stability, and that different regions of Vermont have different needs, challenges, and opportunities. Further, it is the intent of the General Assembly to ensure that local voice and community input retain an important role in Vermont's evolving education landscape. So we're going to jump to section 2, reader assistance heading, cooperative educational service areas. No changes until we get to page 4, line 3, section 603. This is where you are putting your new CSAs and statute. All of this is highlighted because it hadn't been edited before. It should reflect our conversation yesterday. I am the only human who has checked this. That should scare you. If you check this and you feel as though something is out of place, we can address it, but I am confident that this matches what we discussed yesterday.
Thank
I am
you.
not perfect.
Yeah,
Okay. The
Thank you.
editors are not watching our testimony and making sure it tracks what we discussed. This will be an even more important admonishment when we get to your groupings. Is there anything you want to discuss specifically in here?
I would say anybody, we will probably break. I might just spend some time sitting in the lounge going through this to
Yeah,
work
I haven't
through.
checked it, so.
I think it would be awesome. You didn't ask for a suggestion, but I'm going to give you one. Everyone was assigned pieces
Mhm.
to verify. And then we could get it done really quickly. And then we're all on the hook if there's a mistake, not just.
And I would just say, as we do that, the maps are posted today as well to verify off of them.
But remember, I was the one doing the maps. I am not a mapping specialist. So it is entirely possible that those maps aren't accurate. Which is why I think if there was some second round of verification, it would be really helpful. And I've gone through and I've marked up my education directory with every school district that's listed in this has a check mark next to it. So I verify that they are listed in a group. And I have put the little number group that they belong to next to it. So if you also have an education directory, that is a handy dandy way to do whatever you are assigned to do. Should your chair make that assignment, because I can't. Okay, so we're gonna leave verification for your seesaw groupings. We're gonna table that. I believe everything is accurate. Anyone listening, the islands are now all part of the same seesaw. Okay.
I have responded to an email, also verifying that.
We haven't made any changes to the bylaws, no changes to any of the seesaw enabling language here. Scrolling on through, let's see, okay. Section 4, we're gonna jump to page 20. This is the Seesaw Grant Program. So I've done a couple things here. One, we're keeping the grant program the same for startup costs. We've bumped up the eligibility from 10 grand to 15 grand.
Just to remind everybody, that's the 10 grand already existed, and then the 5 grand was a recommendation from the currently existing CISA.
We've kept the original appropriation the same because my understanding is only 10,000 of that 70,000 has been spent, and AOE still has 60,000. And then we've added a new appropriation on page 21. Is 30,000 is appropriated from the general fund to the Agency of Education to provide additional funding for the CISA startup grant program created in subsection A of this section. We are going to jump to page 26. These are all the conforming amendments changing BOCES to CISA. We're going to jump to section 11. Section 12 now. CISA transition. Subsections A and B remain the same as far as appointments and when they have to have their first meeting. But then I've added this language here, which I think suffices. I tried to be as simple as possible. The Articles of Agreement of the VTLC in effect June 30th, 2026 shall serve as the operating agreement of the VTLC unless and until amended. I didn't see you making any other substantive changes to the enabling law as far as requirements for a CISA that, in my opinion, just reading the law would impact VTLC in any way. So if you get feedback that they're worried about something else, please let me know and we can address that. But I think this does the trick. Okay, section 13. Facilitator. So previously this was a green X on line 16 on page 27. And now I've kept employer contract for the reasons I suggested yesterday. Please, I will change that at your direction. But so VTLC shall employer contract for the services of 7 union school district formation facilitators. Everything else remains the same as far as what they're doing. And then on line 19, the VTLC shall also hire 1 lead facilitator who, in addition to facilitating study committees as necessary, shall oversee the work of the 7 facilitators. So that's a total of 8. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
And then same, no credential changes there. On page 28, line 1, the VTLC shall assign 1 facilitator to each CSUN membership region. We haven't changed anything. I can see on page 28, line 10, there's an internal reference that I need to update. The groupings are not in section 13 anymore. So I'll make that change. No change to the information that the facilitator should be thinking about when making those groupings. So we don't make any changes to the section until we get to page 32 in the secretary's review. And actually that is an example of language that we've already gone over that just hadn't been edited. And that was the change from just April 1st, 2028 for the secretary's review, tying that to 60 days following receipt of the report. And then we had bumped back on page 33, the study committee status report from January 1 to February 1 to just to account for giving them an extra month to get going. So your report back from AOE on the status of the study committees would be February 1st, 2027. And then section 14 is the guidance for study committee groupings. So you got it down to 21 groups. And this will be something that I haven't looked at the PDF maps, but there were blank, when I sent the link to Matt yesterday, there were blank because we had smushed groups together. So there were blanks. Right. When I went through last night, I got rid of all those blanks on my interactive map. And so it's just straight 1 through 21. So the numbers aren't necessarily going to match up to the PDF, depending on where the blanks were that I took out. Okay, so facilitators shall use school district groupings contained in subdivisions 1 through 21 of this section of guidance when forming study committees pursuant to section 13 of this act. Facilitators may form study committees that differ from the guidance contained in this section, provided, however, that a facilitator shall transmit the facilitator's rationale for such choices to the lead facilitator for inclusion in the report required pursuant to section 15. That's the final report back. And yesterday we talked about, since the individual facilitators are likely to have wrapped up their work, that final report back would be coming from the lead facilitator. So this is starting on page 34, line 3. This is where all those groups are. I believe this accurately represents yesterday. I implore you to double check my work. Again, it's all highlighted. So some of these haven't changed at all from yesterday. Some of them have changed significantly, depending on how we smushed the groupings as they appeared in the last draft.
I would just, for the committee's sake, when people are going to ask about this, that remind us that sort of respected currently existing lines informing the CSAs, and then within the CSAs, we respected current SU, SD lines such as they exist within that, and that was really the basis for our decisions.
One other word that I know will catch people's eye, but you have to read the whole sentence. On page 33, line 18, where it says facilitators shall, we all know what shall means, use the school district groupings contained in subdivisions of this section as guidance. And guidance is the key word there. People get really upset about shall because that requires you, but it's really shall as guidance, and I just think it's worth noting. It is just guidance. And I'm saying that because of what I said at the end of the day yesterday. I think it's very easy to misconstrue when you get focused on maps, but this is guidance.
What if we change the word guidance to like exemplar?
Exemplar.
Like an example, well, or example, what if we changed it to example? Just to really, drive home that you don't have to follow the guidance, like it is not the expectations to follow the guidance.
I like guidance.
I like guidance.
I'm worried that that's something that is going to make this not as successful. So,
I mean, the people who are involved in doing the work will understand the word guidance.
And I'm trying to communicate it already.
yeah, it's more the people that don't even want it to get that far that I'm worried about. You got it.
We can't sort of write for every contingency.
Can I ask a question that might come up the works again?
Yep.
We had some conversation yesterday about some of these groups are an entire just school district on their own. So who are they talking to? And discussed maybe whether once we had all our groups done, if we wanted to then go back and say, should some of these groups come together as a larger group? Is that still on the table, or do we think these 21 are the 21? I'm thinking like Mount Mansfield, Champlain, like around groups 13, 14, 15. That's something we did never go back to that.
We did because
Sort of,
we
kind
put
of.
together Burlington, South Burlington,
Okay.
and Ski.
Okay,
Put together,
all right.
Harwood and the bigger chunk of Mulberry.
That's right. We do have CVSD on its own and
So we
Essex
do-
Westford on its own.
So we do have some on their own, and I'm just wondering if we're just gonna leave that, or if that's something we need to address. So is it just those three? that are
There's
left
those
now?
three.
Okay.
There's 13,
not-
14, and 15.
I don't have a strong feeling one way or another. I just don't want to overlook that. To do. All,
Yeah, go ahead.
well, all three of those merged into Act 46.
Yeah.
Into those, like, yeah. I'm not, this is absolutely something for the fields to work out and what might make sense and be possible here, and anything, there's certainly options, but they are, well, CBSD is 4,000, Essex Westford is just a couple hundred short of that. MMU is a little bit smaller than that.
A little bit.
I'm fine with it. All three are
No, I
like
think-
significant Act 46 merge. I don't know. Before final draft, I just want.
Nothing that stops them from doing it.
That's
Right,
good.
fine.
They can choose to.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We're moving to section, page 37, section 15, study committee results and analysis facilitator report. On or before January 1st, 2029, the lead facilitator.
When I first read this, I'm like, what is a lead facilitator?
What page are we on? Sorry.
37.
Maybe food, wonderful states.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So the lead facilitator submits a report with the results of each study committee overseen by each facilitator or employed or contracted by BTLC. And I added that so that it was clear that the report back is on the facilitator-led study committees, not any study committees that form.
On their own under chapter 11.
And we haven't changed what the report back should be. We haven't changed anything about section 16, the supervisory union and CSAB boundaries, agency of education report recommendations to you all. Section 17 is the money section. So this is all new language. I have shared this language with JFO. I wouldn't be surprised if this language, as it travels on its way, sees some changes from the money committees. Okay, so starting with study committee reimbursement grant, and I did not reinvent the wheel here. I went right to Act 153 from 2010, and I took this language. Thank you, Donna Russo Savage. The Agency of Education shall pay up to $10,000 to a study committee formed pursuant to Section 13 of this Act to reimburse participating school districts for legal and other services necessary for the analysis and report required pursuant to current law, and then the specifications that you have outlined in this Act for both the advisable, which is subsection D, or inadvisable recommendations with a subsection E or subdivision E of this Act as applicable. I think this is a policy choice, but I think it is entirely possible that there are folks who come to the table and they immediately have an inadvisable report, and therefore what they are going to be reimbursed for is probably slim to nothing. I do think it is entirely possible that people come to the table with every effort to try and have an advisable outcome and end up with inadvisable. And if you don't include that inadvisable, then those folks would be locked out of the reimbursements. So the way this is written is specifically to include any study committee can get reimbursed for their work. And since it is a reimbursement and not a lump sum, theoretically, the reimbursements would be in alignment with the amount of work and effort done in the study committee. Does that match what you are trying to achieve?
Yeah.
The study committee shall forward invoices to the agency on a quarterly basis. The agency shall reimburse 1/2 of the total amount reflected in each set of invoices upon receipt, and the remaining 1/2 upon completion of the final report required pursuant to either subsection or subdivision D or E as applicable. Provided, however, that no payment shall cause the total amount of funds paid to a study committee to exceed the $10,000 limit. So like I said, this is taken directly from Act 153. You can format this reimbursement process any way you want. Here's what I got for you this morning. And then subdivision 2 of this subsection is $210,000 appropriated from the general fund to AOE in fiscal year 2027 for the purpose of awarding study committee reimbursement grants. The study committees formed pursuant to Section 13 of this Act in accordance with subdivision 1 of this subsection. That is simply 10,000 times 21. It is entirely possible that you will have more study committees than that. It's also possible you'll have less study committees than that. I think that amount is entirely a policy choice for you all to make.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We could have more and we could have fewer. So I guess we got to sort of pick the middle spot. And then if that appropriation needs to be updated, that can be a job of next year's legislature, perhaps in the BAA.
What would you like it to see?
What's that?
Do you want to leave it at 2010?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, subsection B, facilitator appropriation reports. The sum of $442,000 is appropriated from the general fund to VTLC in fiscal year 27 for the purpose of hiring or contracting for 7 facilitators and 1 lead facilitator pursuant to Section 13A of this Act, as well as for administrative costs associated with contracting for the facilitators. VTLC may use up to $32,000 of the funds appropriated pursuant to the subsection for administrative costs. So that $442,000 is 50 times 6 plus 60 plus 32. Sorry, 50 times 7 plus 6. I mean, 50 times 7
6.
plus 6. No, we need 7 facilitators.
Facilitators, 7. Lead facilitator plus 60. Yep.
Plus the 32,000 for administrative.
Sure.
Please don't be mean to me if my math is wrong. Not the numbers gal. But that is the intent here. I did not specify that it would be $50,000 for each, we can certainly do that. This gives them the bucket of money, and makes it very clear what they can use for administrative costs. So anything over those administrative costs need to be going to the facilitator hiring. JFO may have further feedback on that. Beginning on October 1st, 2026, and every 3 months thereafter for the next year, the Vermont Learning Collaborative shall submit written quarterly reports to the General Assembly with a detailed accounting of the funds expended pursuant to the subsection. I really didn't know what to do here. I think General Assembly is a little, you could just say General Assembly. There's nothing legally wrong with that, but you have a specific place where these reports should be going.
That would help them to know where it should go. Why don't we say, House and Senate appropriations? House and Senate education.
You need to go to Ways and Means also.
Yeah, sure. We can put that in there.
In Senate, it's finance, right? Is there appropriations and finance? I forgot.
No, it's just.
No, it's all together, right?
Yeah. So let's do money committees and education committees. And-
Well, appropriations are separate. Appropriation committees are separate.
Yeah, yeah.
So you want appropriations committees, education committees, and money committees?
Yeah.
Okay. Detailed accounting of the funds expended pursuant to the subsection.
Yeah.
Is that good?
That's, I think
Does that work?
that's.
Okay. CISA Executive Director Grant Appropriation. From funds appropriated to the Agency of Education for this purpose, the agency shall award a grant in the amount of $50,000 to each CISA created 16 VSA subsection 603A to be used by the CISA to hire an executive director, provided, however, that BTLC shall not be eligible for a grant under this subsection. The sum of $300,000 is appropriated from the general fund to AOE fiscal year 27 for the purposes of awarding a CISA executive director grants in accordance with subdivision 1 of the subsection. So that's 50 times 6. And I believe that was it for money. So you've got buried up in section 4, you've got your current CISA startup grant. And we've added $5K to the total amount of money that a new CISA could get in startup costs. And we've added the $30,000 needed for that as a separate appropriation up in section 4. And then I believe everything else is living here in this section 17. Have I missed any of the money pieces?
Not that occurred to me.
Section 18. Does anyone want to tee this up?
Yes, so Act 73 talks about sort of the effective date of the foundation formula being when we move to newer, larger districts that would be mandated by the state. This envisions a different path toward that, and so required some adjustment for the effective date for when the foundation formula would take place. So this is to reflect that.
Does it move it up to coincide with? All right. We can see, okay.
With the goal being to sort of align, make updates
This
that
timeline.
match up with the work that we've done.
Right, I think below that, as we get into the yellow, we will see the conditions.
Okay, so
Jenna, you worked on some of this. If you have further teeing up, that would be helpful. That'd be.
Yeah, I think it does a couple of things that are responsive to the work that we've been doing this year. You know, one is sort of the concept of the path forward that we see in this bill. Need to sort of align language from what passed in Act 73 to sort of account for this, how we're getting to newer, larger school districts. Otherwise, we just have these sort of threads that are sort of no longer part of that. And then some suggested language, I think, for ways and means about all of the different pieces and parts of the foundation formula that still need to be accounted for in the consultant's work that we'll get back in January of 2027. Sort of those, and I think we've talked about it in this committee, sort of, here and there as we work through this, but all the pieces and parts that need to be in the foundation formula to make it adequate to fund education.
So we sort of needed to define like, what is a newer, larger school district that is now operational? Which you'll see, I think, in section A. And then sort of pulling together all the other pieces that need to go into the creation of the foundation formula. That'd be accurate to say?
Okay, so section 18 amends section 70 in Act 73, which was your effective date section. I've highlighted subsection E in green because it's a tax provision and I don't know what to do with it. So I'm flagging it, and I think this is probably something best for Ways and Means to handle because I don't have an understanding of what 61A is.
Okay.
So subsection F of the of Act 70 of section 70 of Act 73 is the effective date section for the foundation formula. This language amends the effective date of the foundation formula. It and all of the other sections that are specified within subsection F, but very specifically, this is where the foundation formula effective dates live. So it keeps the effective date contingent, and we'll walk through what those contingencies are, but it pushes out that contingent effective date from July 1, 2028 to July 1, 2030.
In order to reflect the process that we've laid out.
Yeah, so just to play through that, let's say you had all of the votes for whether or not to form new union school districts occurring in the fall of 2028. School budgets are already being developed for the next school year. And so we wouldn't know if the foundation formula had been triggered and effective in time for those budgets to be developed, taking into account the foundation formula. So you are essentially pushing this out to the second July 1 after those new school districts votes have happened. Okay, so here are the contingencies. It's no longer that new school districts contemplated by this act, meaning Act 73, have assumed responsibility for the education of all resident students. The new contingency on page 41, line 12, states that the clerk of each school district voting on the proposal to form a unified union school district on or before November 7th, 2028, which is the drop dead date higher up for all of your study committees, facilitator-led study committees to have their vote occur. Pursuant to, and this is an open, I need to confer with some colleagues as to how to refer to this act in this language. I'm going to work on that. Has certified the results of that vote to the Secretary of Education. So that would account for like recounts and all of that kind of stuff. So the votes have happened and the results have been certified. That's the contingency. It's not tied to the substantive outcome of those votes. Subdivision B remains the same. The expert tasked with developing a cost factor foundation formula has provided you with the 45A report. That remains the same. It's Act 73. Subdivision C remains the same in concept, but with much more detail. So subdivision C is brand new. The Joint Fiscal Office has provided, so remember, we're in a list of contingencies. JFO has provided the legislature with an analysis that shows the combined approved fiscal 2027 education spending for the school districts consolidated into new school districts, in each new school district compared with the estimated educational opportunity payment under the revised proposed foundation formula for each district. I don't know what that means. I think would be a great place for wordsmithing in Ways and Means. And then,
A little wordsmithing question.
mhm,
Sometimes we say General Assembly, sometimes we say legislature. Line
this language
19.
has not been edited yet, so I just haven't.
I just didn't know if there was any
No,
rule to that.
yes, General Assembly is the term that we should use. It'll get fixed.
Just a little curiosity, nothing else. Thank you.
Subdivision D on line 3, page 42. Fourth contingency. Legislation has been enacted. So that means it's become law that addresses suitable geographic measures for determining sparsity within the foundation formula, whether it costs more to educate a secondary student than an elementary student in Vermont, and if so, an appropriate weight to capture the cost differential, how to account for the provision of CTE, how to account for regional differences in operating costs, including those driven by regional differences in cost of living and legacy collective bargaining agreements, how to fund special education services, school construction renovation and repayment of school district debt, transportation and universal pre-K, and any other aspect of the foundation formula General Assembly deems prudent to address.
Most of these things are currently part of ongoing studies.
So all 4 of those contingencies need to happen in order for these sections to take effect. And there's definitely tax stuff in here. And most of that tax stuff is related to the foundation formula, but the thing that we think of when we think of these sections is the foundation formula. Also amending subsection G in the effective date section of Act 73. This is very specific to changes made to the tuition statute, but only subsections B and C. And that was related to getting information back on how much, whether it costs more to educate students in grades 9 through 12. The contingency language on lines 17 through 20 remains unchanged, only changing that contingency related to school districts becoming operational to match the contingency language for subsection F related to the votes happening and being certified. And then that was it for the contingency changes. And then starting on page 44, line 9, section 19, a huge thank you to Katie McClinn, who took the lead on drafting this.
I'll tee this up for a second. This is the pre-K language that we have presented to us. We had the language presented, we asked lots of questions, we had superintendents come in and testify. I then met with, Aaron and I met with folks in human services, sort of hashed out the concerns that were brought up. So you'll see that this is now down to essentially intent language and the additional study work for the current work that's going on regarding pre-K. It no longer carries the language that would require a public school to provide pre-K if no pre-K was available. It no longer carries the language that sort of codifies the practice of superintendents signing provisional licenses. We heard concerns about that. We also heard that CDD and AOE are trying to work out a way that the state can handle that rather than superintendents doing it. So you'll see a lot of those concerns addressed in the removal of a lot of the language of what we received.
Bless you.
So section 19 is findings. So again, you'll see a reader assistant heading on line 3 on page 44, section 19 findings. The General Assembly finds that despite being colloquially known as the Universal Pre-Kindergarten Program, not all children 3 and 4 years of age in the state have equal access to a pre-qualified pre-kindergarten provider. Vermont ranks second in the country with regard to access to pre-K education by children who are 4 years of age, within 76% of eligible, with 76% of eligible 4-year-old children receiving pre-K education. And that Vermont is one of 2 states in which more than 70% of children who are 4 years of age receive pre-K services. Only 11% of eligible children are enrolled in pre-K services in Essex County. There is considerable geographic disparity in the state with regard to the number of pre-K slots available. And as a result, 95% of eligible children in Windsor and Windham counties, 93% of eligible children in Chittenden County have access to a pre-qualified pre-kindergarten provider as compared to 55% in Franklin County and 61% in Grand Isle County. And while a substantial portion of states provide a full school day of 4 or more hours of pre-K education daily, less than 5% of Vermont's pre-qualified pre-kindergarten providers provide a full day of 4 or more hours of pre-kindergarten education. Section 20 is legislative intent language. Subdivision 1 is the same language that was traveling in human services pre-K language. Is the intent of the General Assembly to ensure that pre-K is included as an integral part of Vermont's education system, as the right to education is fundamental for the success of Vermont's children in all grades, pre-kindergarten through grade 12. New intent language. It's the General Assembly's intent to determine a locus of responsibility to ensure there is access to pre-K education within all school districts, provide access to licensed teachers in the classrooms of both pre-K public and private providers, including access to support and provisional status, and equalize financial resources for all pre-qualified providers of pre-kindergarten education. Section 21 is the request for JFO to contract with a contractor with expertise in Vermont's education funding system to make recommendations regarding how to account for the provision of pre-K education within Vermont's education finance system. Everything not highlighted, you've already reviewed. It came from human services. So there was no changes to the report piece. Think. Yes. Still requires alignment between the 45A report and this report. It would become the pre-K report would be coming back to January 15th, 2027. And there's a $50,000 appropriation to JFO from the general fund to hire that contractor. And then your effective date section 22 is still July 1, 2026.
Is that it? All right. I would like to ask that we take a half-hour break, during which volunteers or those volunteered will do a little checking up on the lists. The maps are available on our website.
In taking a quick look at the map, we still have, it still looks to me like District 13 is being cut by the CISA.
Slowly
Which
here.
map are you looking at? 3.1. The districts with CISA map.
Can I ask a question about that also?
Yeah, yes, sorry.
I'm not sure, and I'm getting feedback, it's actually about that same part. Maybe I did this, I think it's easy to like understand that everyone was exhausted yesterday, but I think maybe I suggested that Walton, Craftsbury, Greensboro, Hardwood, Woodbury and Standard be put in the wrong one, because if we're suggesting in the completely voluntary graphic organizer that they be in District 13, I think maybe they should also be in the CISA conversations with District 13. Would that be a hugely consequential change to wrap that last purple chunk into this for the CISA map.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Right.
I probably just said the wrong thing.
I'm just I'm
Yes.
trying to open maps here. and
Yeah.
people don't
It's
allow
on you.
one.
I think it was a
Yeah.
committee discussion.
So I'd say
So
Beth, go ahead.
I have the supervisory union map open and the CISA line does not cut supervisory unions apart.
Correct.
Craftsbury, Greensboro, Wolcott, Hardwick, Woodbury, Stannard are a supervisory union.
Yes, they are.
And Albany, Glover, Irisburg, Barton, Brownington, Westmore are a supervisory union. So the CISA line does not cut those two supervisory unions apart.
No.
But the purple color, I guess, is. what
Yeah, and I think
questioning.
the reason maybe we put them in District 17 is because they go currently to the Green Mountain Tech and
Yes.
Career Center.
Yep.
However, knowing that they're ready to like have conversations with schools in District 13, like I wonder if they should just start those conversations in the CISA, like, does it matter which? This is so complicated.
Yeah, so I totally appreciate what you're saying. And I think that the hope would be that that would be worked out locally. That, you know, as we were going through this, because we were having this debate yesterday when Emily suggested that we maintain SU boundaries. But they did keep coming up like, well, some of the district talks may do that,
Right.
but that the people who are there on the ground
Yeah,
will, because we built in so much flexibility,
yeah.
we'll be able to sort of gather that and figure out the best way to move
Well,
forward.
and that was exactly my response. I was like, if you don't like those CISA lines, then change them, join the other CISA, but,
Yes, now the CISA lines are a different matter.
well, right, I know.
But I will say, what I will say about the CISA lines, of course, is that, you know, sort of once mergers happen, if they happen, then there may be some adjustments to be made in the CISA lines.
And I'll give you an example of that. When you look at District 9 and adding Hartford into it under the district, if it's outside of the CISA, we can't change the CISA line right now. It will have to be changed in the end by a General Assembly if they choose to join that, but they're part of the guidance map for District 9,
Yeah.
even though they're not within the CISA right now, because we're bound to keep the
Yeah.
CISA line.
So, yeah, I think we'll,
So, yes, they might,
got the built-in flexibility.
Say the same thing happened in my region. We'd moved Cal Co-op in because they're already having conversations, but once we decided to stick with supervisory union boundaries, move them back, they have the flexibility on the ground to make that decision.
That's right.
So that's the same
trying to
situation.
accommodate as many as
Um,
No perfect way to do
Yeah.
it, to like have all the lines aligned. Hence the guidance and flexibility. Okay, yes, Josh.
any chance we can get Secretary Saunders in just to weigh, for the AOE to weigh in on our final draft, just to kind of hear what their perspective is?
I think that we are going to vote this out in a little bit. And it's also incomplete because it still has to go through two other committees. However, thereafter, potentially, I think we had them here Friday. And I think we got a pretty clear understanding of where they feel we should be going.
I was thinking if they had any input on like outside of where they think we should be going, right? Take that off the table, but like where we are going, right? So what's your 2 cents on where we're at now?
Yeah, I'm not sure we would hear it much different than what we heard on Friday.
staff goes to the room. I thought they were still here, but they left. Tons.
Okay, so let's do some CISA divisions here. Beth, would you take District 12 to kind of look over?
So District 12,
I'm sorry, CISA.
CISA number, what, Northeast Region CISA?
Yeah, exactly, thank
And
you.
make sure that that CISA line does not cut any supervisory union.
No,
boundaries,
well,
or what am
no,
I checking?
no, the task is to make sure that the contents of that reflect the contents that are written in the bill we just looked at.
So the purple section has everybody listed correctly.
exactly.
I'm looking at 11, 12, 13
Yes,
to make sure the list matches the map.
yeah.
I can do that.
Leland, since we've gone back and forth over the Chittenden Central region, assign that to you if you don't mind. And that is just to make sure that the words in the bill match the words on the map. I will take the Champlain Valley region. Josh, you want to do Winooski Valley?
Sure.
Great, thank you. Emily, would you take Southeast? I've sort of put everybody where they live. Anybody else want to volunteer? We need a Champlain Valley North region. So, Kate, just do that. Again, the task here is just to look at the language to make sure that the CISA is listed correctly and that the districts are listed correctly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Groups.
Champlain Road.
Just making sure I understand.
Champlain Valley North, yeah. What do we got left here? We have Southwest. Oh, that's a Rob.
Yep, already on it.
We got, that's it, I think. Did I do it?
There's 7 assigned. 2, 3, 4. Actually, only we are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Missing one?
7. So Rob's doing, so that's 1.
Everybody raise your hand if you're going to
Raise your hand if
sign.
you're doing 1, because there should be 7, right? 1, 2.
Kate's up 2.
I think the new guy needs 4. Just put your hand up.
No.
5, 6.
Maybe a sign
7.
northeast.
Are we 7?
I think that's 7.
Okay.
Raise them high, just like in a classroom. 1, 2,
Yeah,
3,
okay.
4, 5, 6, 7.
We're doing this big straw poll.
No, we're not.
A sneaky straw poll.
All right.
I wouldn't mind if someone who isn't assigned sat with me and sort of read and looked, like,
What do you do
Great.
with that?
Yep, that's like a buddy.
I'll help that.
buddy.
Okay.
You're dead to me.
We will go off live. We'll come back on at 11 to verify everything.